Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. I was standing by the ammo counter in Harris Tactical, flipping through a box of 308 when I heard my brother's voice cut through the room like a blade. Well, look who's here, Miss Rambo herself. Thomas, loud as hell as always. His stupid grin stretched across his face like he'd just spotted a clown. What's the matter, Grace? Come to teach us how to shoot like the army taught you? A couple of guys near the AR display laughed, and someone added, "Hope she didn't come to braid our hair and pass out cookies." I didn't say a word, just kept my eyes on the rounds in my hand. My heart didn't race. It never did. Not anymore. Thomas stepped closer. "What did you even do over there, huh? File paperwork? Make coffee for the real soldiers?" More laughter. Someone muttered something about affirmative action promotions. And another guy, maybe 20, leaned in and said, "Bet she couldn't hit the side of a barn." Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? I stood still, boots planted, jacket zipped halfway. My patch, a faded skull over crossed rifles, was stitched above my heart. Nobody noticed it. They were too busy laughing. Thomas pointed at it then, sneering, "Nice patch. You sew that on yourself, or is that what they give out for participation now?" A group of hunters near the back snorted. One of them elbowed the other. "She's cute, though. I'll give her that. Little thing like her? Ain't no way she's seen combat." I kept my hands at my sides, kept my mouth shut, let them dig their own hole. Then the bell over the front door rang. Every head turned. A man in uniform stepped inside, boots clapping against the concrete. White hair buzzed close, eyes sharp. Commander William Ashford. I hadn't seen him in almost 4 years. He scanned the room, saw Thomas, saw the crowd. Then his eyes landed on me. He stopped and saluted. Full salute, hand to brow, spine straight. "Major Grace Burnett, the bravest we ever had." Silence fell like a hammer. The laughter died, the smirks faded. Even Thomas's face dropped a notch, confusion washing over that smug grin. Ashford stepped closer, still at attention. "It's an honor, ma'am." No one moved. Phones dropped. Jaws tightened. I saw a few eyes flick down to the patch, then back to my face like they were seeing it for the first time. Thomas blinked, mouth twitching. "Wait, what?" I didn't answer. I just turned to the guy behind the counter and said, "2 boxes of that .308 and a receipt." The kid behind the counter bagged up my ammo with shaky hands. Nobody said a word. I walked out into the heat of the Nevada sun and didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd been underestimated by that crowd since I was a kid, since long before I wore a uniform. Our dad was a Marine, 3rd generation. House rules were concrete. Shoes polished, yes sir, and no ma'am. No excuses. But even with all that structure, it was always clear who the favorite was. Thomas, he was the loud one, always had a smart-ass comeback, always yelling in the backyard like he owned the air. He'd punch kids just to see if they'd hit back, and Dad ate it up like it proved something. Me? I was quiet. I'd spend hours in the barn stacking cans or cleaning Dad's rifles. Nobody told me to. I just liked the order, liked the calm. I didn't need to shout to be seen, but in that house, if you weren't loud, you weren't noticed. Thomas got the spotlight. I got called the helper. I'd set the table while he ran his mouth. I'd sweep the porch while he trashed the living room. Dad would pat him on the back for energy and toss me a nod like I was background furniture. I didn't cry about it. I just got used to being the one who handled things while everyone else made noise. We had this old .22 bolt action, rusted stock but solid. I taught myself to shoot out back by lining up tin cans on the fence. While Thomas bragged about hitting deer with Dad's .30-06, I was the one hitting bottle caps at 30 yards. He didn't notice. Nobody did. Until I turned 19 and said I was enlisting. It was a Wednesday. Kitchen table, meatloaf night. I slid the papers over to Mom. I signed up. Thomas was shoveling food into his mouth and nearly choked. "Wait, what? You joined the Army?" Dad didn't flinch, just stared over his glass. "Admin or medic?" "Infantry." Thomas burst out laughing. "Get the hell out of here. You won't last a damn month." Mom gave him a half-hearted, "Thomas," but he just leaned in, shaking his head. "Seriously, Grace, they don't hand out medals for keeping your boots clean. What, you gonna organize the ammo?" I looked at him once. "I'll be fine." He pointed his fork at me. "Basic will chew you up. You're not built for it. Come on. You don't even yell." I didn't answer. Didn't argue. I wasn't joining to prove anything to him, or Dad, or even myself. I just wanted to work. I wanted to sweat, to earn something that wasn't handed out over dinner. That night, I packed without saying much. Thomas played video games in the living room, shouting into his headset like a drunk referee. Dad stayed in the garage cleaning tools he hadn't used in years. Mom folded my socks in a neat row, kissed my forehead, and said, "You don't have to do this." I didn't respond. Just zipped the bag and set it by the door. The morning I left, nobody came with me to the station. Just a rideshare driver and a bag that weighed less than the silence in the house. The bus to Fort Jackson was full of kids who looked like they still lived off gas station pizza and Mountain Dew. Most were trying to prove something. I wasn't. I just sat still, watched the road, and waited for my shot. I knew I'd get there and they'd take one look at me and think I was fragile, soft-spoken, forgettable. That was fine. Let 'em. The bus hissed to a stop in South Carolina, and we poured out into the heat like cattle. Within 10 minutes, a drill sergeant was screaming 2 inches from my face, spit flying, breath sour as diesel. "You blink like you're afraid of the sun, Private. You gonna cry about the weather?" I didn't blink again. Not that day. The physical stuff wrecked me at first. I'd trained, but it didn't matter. My arms shook doing push-ups. My shins were covered in blisters. I threw up after the second ruck march and thought my feet would never stop bleeding. But I never dropped out, never sat down, never asked for a break. I followed orders like they were scripture. While other recruits tried to show off, I just did the damn work. No talking back, no whining, just grit. By week 3, they stopped yelling at me. One morning during weapons training, we were lined up on the range, rifles resting on sandbags. Targets at 300 meters. The guy next to me missed 5 out of 6. I hit every single one. The instructor walked over and looked down at my score sheet, then back at my face. "You ever shot before?" I nodded. He gave me a longer look. "Where?" "Backyard, tin cans, no scope." He grunted. "Keep it up." From then on, they started calling me out during drills, not to humiliate me, but to show others how it was done. I didn't brag. I didn't smile. I just kept moving. Mail came during week 6. My mom sent a short letter and a photo of our dog. At the bottom, she wrote, "Thomas says you'll be home before graduation. Please prove him wrong." I folded that letter and slid it into my breast pocket. Carried it through every crawl, every climb, every cold shower. When we finally graduated, I didn't send a picture home. I didn't write back. I didn't need to say anything. I chose infantry as promised, and 2 months later, I deployed. They dropped us northeast of Asadabad, along the Kunar River. Thick hills, brutal terrain, thin air, no mercy. We were overwatch for a combat engineer unit clearing IEDs along Route Bear. The first time I fired my weapon in combat, I didn't flinch. 2 insurgents, Upper Ridge, West Side. 1 shot each, clean. No celebration, just silence. After that, the squad started calling me the Ghost. Not because I was invisible, but because I didn't miss, and I didn't talk about it. Command noticed. Quietly. Nobody pinned medals to my chest or wrote me into history, but my name started showing up on more orders. Harder missions, riskier terrain. The thing about combat is it strips away every story people ever told you about yourself. You're either who you are or you're dead. Out there, I wasn't the helper anymore. I was the one you wanted on your 6. They held the promotion ceremony on a Tuesday. Dry heat, crisp flags, boots polished so sharp they could blind you. I stood at parade rest while the colonel read off my record. Awarded for exemplary leadership and operational performance in combat deployments, promoted to the rank of Major, United States Army. Applause broke out. My parents were sitting in the second row under a white tent, fanning themselves with the program. And there, arms crossed in the back, was Thomas, sunglasses on, no smile. Afterward, they brought us into the reception hall for coffee and cake nobody wanted. Officers shook my hand. A few junior soldiers came over to say congratulations. I nodded, kept it simple. Thomas walked up 10 minutes in, still had his sunglasses on indoors like he was waiting to be recognized. "Major now, huh?" he said. "Guess they're handing those out faster than they used to." I didn't flinch. Earned it. He shrugged. "Sure. Or maybe you just hit the right timing. Politics, quotas, whatever. All works out, right?" I stared at him. "You came all this way just to say that?" He glanced at the table like he hadn't heard me. "I'm just saying, some folks climb, others get carried. Before I could answer, Mom swooped in. Honey, you should have seen her out there. So composed. Everyone else was sweating and shuffling, and she stood like a statue. Dad nodded beside her. Didn't even twitch. Just like when she was a kid lining up those cans. Thomas smiled without his eyes. Yeah, she was always real good at stacking things. Then he walked over to the drink table like he had better places to be. He didn't speak to anyone else for the next hour. I looked at him from across the room. He was checking his phone, pretending not to notice the lieutenant colonel shaking hands near me. Every time someone approached me, his jaw got a little tighter. Like he couldn't stand seeing people respect someone who used to sweep the porch while he played King of the Hill. We posed for a photo. He stood a step away, barely touching my shoulder. When the camera clicked, he peeled off and said, I've got an early flight. Dad offered him a ride, but he waved it off and left on foot. Just disappeared like he was allergic to staying any longer. Watching him walk out, I didn't feel angry. I just knew. He wasn't uncomfortable because I'd succeeded. He was uncomfortable because he hadn't. The next Saturday, I walked back into Harris Tactical for a sling and some cleaning oil. Figured the noise from last time had settled. It hadn't. Thomas was already inside, leaned up on the glass counter like he owned the place. I saw the way his head turned the second I walked in, like he'd been waiting for another round. Look who's back, he said, loud enough for the whole damn store to hear. You here to teach another seminar on combat fashion? I didn't stop walking, just moved past the racks toward the back wall. The patch on my jacket, same one, was still stitched right over my heart. Thomas followed. What's that patch again? He asked, pointing like it was a badge from a Cracker Jack box. Special Forces? Sniper Barbie? Remind me. Laughter rolled out from the guys by the optics shelf. One of them said, must be some real elite program. Her boots don't even have dirt on them. I turned slowly and looked him dead in the eye. He smirked. Relax, I'm just saying. Maybe the Army's got a new unit that just reads magazines and makes coffee. Then, a guy stepped forward from near the counter, mid-40s, tan hat, thick forearms. Tell you what, he said, pulling a quarter from his pocket. You can shut all of us up real quick. One shot. That quarter. 150 meters. Thomas chuckled. Come on, don't waste your time. She's probably going to ask what caliber a quarter needs. I didn't respond, just held out my hand. The man dropped the coin into it. Someone ran out back to set up the wire across the range, tying it tight between two old fence posts. A crowd started following, phones already out. I walked to the bench in the center of the floor and laid my rifle on it. My own, not one of the store rentals. Custom bolt action, matte black. Worn in. I sat down, ignoring the murmurs. Then I started breaking it down. Deliberate, efficient, clean. Bolt out. Barrel wiped. Chamber checked. Reassembled in under a minute. The man with the hat raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to take that shot cold? I locked the bolt. I'm good. Outside, it was blazing. Heat shimmered across the range. A line of people stood behind the glass window or along the cinder block wall, whispering. The quarter dangled thin as a promise. No wind, no excuse. I lay flat on the bench, pressed the stock into my shoulder, and adjusted my cheek weld. Slow breath in, half out, trigger pull, crack. The quarter spun off the wire in two perfect pieces. One hit the dirt, the other clipped the fence. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't move. They just stared. Phones lowered. Eyes shifted. Thomas's jaw moved like he wanted to speak but forgot how. I stood up, chambered the rifle, and walked back toward the door. The guy with the hat looked stunned. Hell, he muttered. She wasn't kidding. Behind me, someone whispered, Who is she? I was wiping down the rifle on the bench when the bell over the front door rang again. Boots. Heavy. Slow. The kind of steps that made a room hold its breath. I looked up. Commander William Hayes. Silver hair, rigid posture, still built like he'd chew nails for breakfast. His uniform was pressed razor sharp, metals gleaming. His presence cut through the heat and sweat of the gun store like a blade. He scanned the room. Nobody spoke. Then his eyes found me. He walked straight across the floor, stopping right in front of the bench where I stood. He saluted. Not a nod. Not a casual hand wave like you give an old friend. A full, formal salute. Hand to brow, arm locked, spine straight. Major Grace Burnett, he said, clear and loud. The bravest we ever had. Silence hit harder than the rifle crack outside. Every laugh from earlier died in people's throats. The guy with the quarter just stood there, hand still hovering near his belt. Phones lowered. I returned the salute, sharp and quick. Commander Hayes nodded once, like the matter was settled. I've served with killers, cowards, and legends. She didn't flinch when half a mountain was falling on us. Thomas was by the wall, arms crossed tight. He looked like someone had just ripped the floor out from under him. He tried to smirk, but it twitched at the corners. Couldn't quite hold. One of the younger guys, tall, maybe early 20s, stepped closer to Thomas and whispered, "Wait, she's your sister?" Thomas didn't answer. He shifted like the floor was too hot. That's when I noticed the girl near the cleaning kits. Black hoodie, maybe 20, hair in a tight bun. She was holding her phone but not recording. She stepped forward. "Burnett," she said. "Are you the one from Kunar?" There was a story, my brother told it. He was in Echo Squad. I looked at her. "Who's your brother?" "Matt Reynolds. He said someone stayed behind when the convoy got hit, covered their escape from the ridge." The room tensed. I nodded once. "Yeah, that was me." She swallowed hard. "He said the shooter never missed, saved 6 of them. Nobody ever named names." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. The doubt in the room shifted. You could feel it. People glancing at each other like they were suddenly unsure whose side they'd been on. The older guy near the scopes looked down at the rifle, then back at me. "Damn," another voice from the back. "She really did it?" Commander Hayes turned to the room. "She didn't just do it, she owned it. There's men alive right now because of her. I'd follow her anywhere." I didn't gloat, didn't move. But Thomas? He stepped back into the shadow near the doorway. Not a word. Not even eye contact. Respect didn't just shift in the room, it slammed down like a verdict. 3 weeks after the gun store, I got a letter marked final notice. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee still steaming, and read the whole thing twice. Balance due, $45,239.18. Loan co-signed by Grace Burnett. Past due, 132 days. It was from a regional bank out of Carson City. Business loan. Small equipment company that had defaulted months ago. My name, my social security number, my service number, all listed. Clear as day. But I'd never signed anything. Never even heard of the damn company. I called the bank. The woman on the phone said they'd verified my identity when the application came in. "Who verified it?" She paused. "A Thomas Burnett. Said he was your brother. We have your signature on file." I asked her to send the paperwork. She did. By noon, I was staring at my own name signed across 6 documents. Except it wasn't my signature. It looked close, but the angle was wrong. Too rushed. My G doesn't loop like that. And I sure as hell didn't authorize anyone to use my DD-214 or my rank to get approved. I sat there for a long minute, breathing slow. No rage, no panic, just cold calculation. I opened my safe, pulled out every original I had. Birth certificate, discharge paperwork, my federal ID, signed forms from command. Then I called a lawyer. His name was Nolan Briggs, retired JAG. Sharper than steel and twice as patient. I handed him the files the next morning. He flipped through them, nodding. "Forgery's sloppy," he said. "They leaned on your service record for credibility. They'll argue implied consent. But with the documents you've got, this won't hold." "Can we go after him?" "We will. But first, we build the case tight. Like a sniper round, you only get one shot." I like that. So I waited. I dug deep, pulled phone records, tracked addresses tied to the fake company, looked up licensing applications. One of them had an emergency contact listed. Thomas Burnett, owner-operator. He used my name to open a checking account, used my credentials to secure a veteran-backed loan, then ran the business into the ground and disappeared from the paper trail like a coward. I didn't tell him I knew, didn't send a warning. Instead, I collected everything. Quiet, precise, controlled, every forged signature, every lie, every bank transfer, like counting targets in a scope. I took my time, not out of mercy, out of discipline. Betrayal in war is fast. Gunfire, ambush, a missed call. This question mark. This was slow, familiar, ugly in a way that war never touched. He didn't just take my name, he took the years I spent earning it. Every time I saluted, every time I hit a target in the dark, every hour in sand and cold, he tied all of it to his failure, and he did it knowing who I was. We shared a childhood, a dinner table, a last name. That made it worse. but I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to send angry texts or show up at his door screaming. I was going to do it my way, accurate, legal, permanent. The courtroom smelled like paper and floor polish, cold air blowing through two strong vents. I sat at the front, uniform pressed, notes in hand, jaw tight. I wasn't there for drama. I was there for truth. The bailiff called my name. I stood, walked to the stand, and raised my right hand without hesitation. The prosecutor started simple. State your name and background, please. Major Grace Burnett, United States Army, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, currently stationed out of Fort Carson. And your relationship to the defendant? He's my brother. Thomas sat at the defense table in a cheap gray suit, wrists cuffed, face blank. No smirk, no swagger, just silence. The prosecutor walked through the evidence like a checklist. Can you confirm this is your signature? No, it's not. Is this your authorization? No. One by one, they laid the forgeries in front of me. I named each one: the loan, the false cosign, the veteran ID use, the fabricated license approval. I didn't stutter once. My voice stayed calm, professional, no emotion, just fact after fact. Then they brought out the real documents: my enlistment papers, my medical clearance, my federal forms. The difference in signatures was obvious even from 5 feet away. The judge, an older woman with dark eyes and zero patience, looked at Thomas. Mr. Burnett, she said, you're being charged with interstate fraud, forgery of federal documentation, and identity theft. Do you understand these charges? He nodded once, didn't speak. She looked harder at him. Do you deny forging your sister's information? He shifted, looked at me for half a second, then back at the judge. No, he said, voice low. I did it. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. The room buzzed. A ripple of stunned murmurs moved through the gallery. 2 women in the back gasped, old family friends from Pahrump. One of them whispered something about, his father would have never believed this. The prosecutor didn't even have to push further. They played surveillance footage next. Thomas entering the bank, handing over forms, signing my name. I didn't blink. The judge reviewed her notes, then glanced at the bailiff. Mr. Burnett is to be remanded into federal custody. Bail is denied due to the interstate nature and premeditation of the crime. Thomas didn't move, didn't protest, just sat there like a kid caught cheating on a test and finally realizing there was no do-over. The bailiff came forward and grabbed his arm. He flinched, then turned to me and said, I didn't mean to screw you over. I thought I had time. I looked at him, dead in the eye. You stole my name. He didn't reply. They walked him out in cuffs. Cameras were already flashing outside the door, lenses aimed at the hallway like sharks waiting for blood. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and walked down the aisle. I passed the rows of faces, some familiar, some judging, all silent. When I hit the front steps, microphones started flying my way. Major Burnett, did you know about the fraud before the arrest? Was this revenge? How do you feel now that he's in custody? I didn't answer a single one. I kept walking, steady pace, eyes ahead. My justice didn't need noise. It just needed accuracy. A month after the sentencing, a letter showed up at my door, handwritten. No return address, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was his, sloppy, uneven, like he was trying to hold the pen steady, but couldn't quite manage it. I sat at the edge of the kitchen counter and opened it with the same calm I used for everything else now. Grace, I don't expect you to read this, but I hope you do. I screwed up. I know that doesn't cover it, but I'm saying it anyway. I didn't just take your name. I dragged it through the dirt thinking I could clean it up before it stuck. I thought I could win, just once. I was tired of being the one who watched you pass me by. I wanted to build something and prove I was more than loud talk. I thought if I used your name to get it started, I could pay it back before anyone noticed. I didn't plan on failing. That's the truth. I just did. And yeah, I lied, repeatedly, easily, because I thought I had a right to win even if I hadn't earned it. Now I've got a record, a tiny apartment, and a stack of bills I can't pay. I deserve it. All of it. You don't. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want you to know, every time someone said your name in that courtroom, I realized what I cost you. And I can't take that back. I'm sorry. It wasn't long. A page and a half. But I read it 3 times. He didn't ask for anything. No excuses beyond the ones already embedded in the words. No promises of change. No fake remorse wrapped in flattery. Just truth. And that's what made it hurt. Not because it made me feel sorry for him, but because for once, it was real. The brother who wrote that letter wasn't the kid who mocked me in the barn. He wasn't the man smirking at the gun store. He was just a guy who knew he lost and finally said it out loud. I folded the letter and walked down the hall, opened the drawer where I kept the medals they gave me, some in velvet boxes, some loose from moves and deployments. I placed the letter next to them, not as a keepsake, as acknowledgement, like any other proof of service. Later that night, I pulled a blank note card from my desk and wrote one sentence. Maybe one day we'll talk again. No signature, no date. I dropped it in the mailbox before I could overthink it. Not because I forgave him, not because I needed him to feel better, but because even after everything, after the lies, the theft, the trial, I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in precision. And sometimes that meant knowing exactly how much to give. No more, no less. I didn't call, didn't text, just drove. It was a gray stucco building on the edge of North Las Vegas. Cheap siding, weeds cracking through the sidewalk. His name was taped to the mailbox with a piece of ripped masking tape. Apartment 1C, I knocked twice. The lock turned slow. Then the door creaked open, and there he was. Thomas. Thinner than before. Beard patchy. Eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in a week. He blinked at me. Grace? I didn't answer right away. Just looked at him. Really looked at him. He wasn't smug, wasn't angry, just tired. I stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Not a hug, not forgiveness. Contact. He didn't flinch. I said, "Justice did its part." He nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting to hear it out loud. I added, "The rest is on you." He didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't offer a single excuse. Just looked down at the ground and said, "Yeah, I know." We stood there for a beat. No noise, no questions. Just quiet understanding with sharp edges. Then I stepped back. He held the door a second longer. "You didn't have to come." I turned once as I walked away. "No," I said. "But I did." I didn't look back again. Didn't need to.